Hello and welcome, everyone. We're your hosts, Ben and Zach. This is the Emancipated Citizen podcast. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about the Saudi Arabian LGBT community, their experiences, the criminalization of their resistance, and the work that is being done to protect their human rights. So for some background, Saudi Arabia is one of the countries in which same-sex sexual activity between men is punishable by death. There is a very strong honor culture to push LGBT members of society into shame and isolation. And this is kind of enforced by the educational system and the state-run media. That's everywhere in the state, and moreover, this any kind of counter narrative or expression and advocacy of the community's rights is stamped by the state as extremist propaganda, and can really have dire consequences. So we thought this was a very important topic for us to cover here, and we decided to invite a guest who has been closely involved with the country's religious establishment before, as well as the the gay community over there, and has been involved in LGBT advocacy for quite some time. So hello, Wajeeh. Thank you a
Hi.
lot for taking your time today to talk to us. Would you like to introduce yourself quickly in your own words and give us a bit of background on, where you come from, your experiences, and
Yeah.
just a brief overview of who you are?
Thanks for having me. My name is Wajeeh Lion. I am an international human rights activist, a political dissident with asylum in the United States. I'm the first openly gay man from Saudi Arabia. I've been a civil rights uh, advocate and a human rights advocate in the United States. I've been an organizer, grassroots organizer in the United States for some time. I've worked in local policies like Raise Up Missouri, Clean Missouri, Vote No, Prop A. Been able to change and be part of changing four constitutional laws in the state of Missouri to make a better life for people in the U.S. And it was about time for me to start getting involved in Middle Eastern human rights issues, especially with the LGBT community. So back in 2018, I started to enter the Middle Eastern human rights advocacy, but I've been involved in U.S. politics since 2015.
Yeah, okay. Like, so you've been involved in U.S. politics, like kind of independently from this whole, like your background, of Saudi Arabia and all of that. Did that have to do um that have anything to do with your claim to asylum and like you're having or you're moving to the US? Could you tell us a little bit about that? Like did you move there like because you were
Yeah,
dating,
yeah,
or was it
yeah.
a job thing,
No,
or
my family originally came to the United States back in 2005 because my parents were under the King Abdullah Scholarship for Saudi citizens to go abroad and get their higher education. So as a child, I was a 12-year-old who came to the United States at that time. So I was already on U.S. soil when I started getting involved. I was, I had an insight to what America is. I had an insight to who are Americans, what is the American philosophy, what is the political sphere in the United States. I was a consultant for Riley County Police Department because of my work, and then gave a debrief for the Second Brigade at Fort Riley with the U.S. Army, and gave me good experiences that opened my eyes to the United States. So I was and back in high school, we used to compete in forensics and debate, and that meant that we would go across the state and compete on rhetoric and the art of rhetoric in different ways, and that excelled my growth, um, especially for someone that's coming from Saudi Arabia, where critical thinking is not necessarily uh, a to-go-to tactic for teachers. Meanwhile, we were asked to criticize almost everything that we knew in schools here in the United States. So it was a different philosophy, it was a different strategy. Saudis who were in college would come to me back then for advice on their status in the country, or would come to me for help to figure out if they're in trouble with the US government or not. And I would reach out to their state representatives or their mayor on their behalf and talk to them. And I was still in high school. So since a very young age, I have been involved and have been inspired by US politics. And it was my dream to uh, one day get involved in that industry. So the first job that I got after graduating from Kansas State University was a legislative administrative assistant at the state uh, capital of Missouri, of Kansas, for the Kansas State Senate for Senator Alita Faust from the 29th district of Kansas. So it was a great honor. I learned a lot of things from there, and it just made me more interested in getting involved. And that's how I got involved in grassroots movement and grassroots organizing and in Kansas City, Missouri, because I was lucky to meet with activists who had different agenda but the same goal, and the goal was human rights. It was a different location of the world. It was a different destination, but we worked on the Dream Act now, and we were very involved with the DACA recipients in the United States that were facing a lot of discrimination during the Trump administration because of who they are. Um, for those who don't know who are the DACA recipients, they are the the kids that were brought in very young age by their parents illegally into the United States. So the Obama administration passed a law that would allow them to become legal residents of the United States and start to get their own benefits. So those are the dreamers that we're talking about, and it was nice to know that I wasn't alone in my struggle
No,
uh, to get my asylum, and it was nice to know that my work is not alone in the Middle East. There's the same work done in South America, same work is done in Mexico, same work is done in many different places of the world. And if you can get to know these people that are doing these amazing projects of grassroots organizing, you get to learn a lot about what is good tactics, what aren't the good tactics are, what are good steps for human rights advocacy, what doesn't work, who to talk, who don't talk to, how to engage in the media. So all of these come with experiences and people that have been involved in these things for generations. And I think if we don't, as Saudis or people from the Arab Gulf, try to reach out and get involved in their own projects, we will never learn how to advocate better for ourselves. Especially that our human rights work in Saudi Arabia has been very limited for a very, very long time till recently. So we basically don't have a lot of Saudis don't have any experiences
yeah,
advocating for human rights.
yeah. That's the tragic thing, like with the Saudi advocacy community, that like there's so much that's needed, but the people who are actually involved, people who come from the country, we don't have that like that organizing political education, and like we kind of start off very far behind with like a lot of other movements are able to start in, yeah, in terms of basic skills and experiences and that kind of thing. And yeah, so what I get from what you're, what you're saying here is that like from a pretty young age you seem to have been very involved in both the U.S. political scene and like the Saudi Arabian community in the U.S. And have done a lot of networking there, know a lot of people. I'm especially curious about like first of all, I don't know like this when or if some kind of conflict arose between your between your gay identity and I guess certain values that you found to be present within the Saudi community. Could you elaborate on that and how did it start from the very beginning? Like did you even accept that identity for yourself, or did it take a longer time for you to kind of detach yourself from that? And yeah, like how does those things kind of go together?
Let me ask the question back so I make sure I understood the question. You're asking me when did I find out that I was gay and when did I start accepting myself?
Um, yeah, essentially, and like I guess this is a follow-up question of like how the Saudi community around you interacted with that fact.
Okay. So you kind of notice that you're different for a very young age. But because you come from a country like Saudi Arabia, we're talking about sex is a taboo, where there's no sex education, where you're not informed anything about your family about any of these things. Um, you kind of don't know why you're different or how you're different. You just know that you're different. And from that, I didn't when I came to the United States, I noticed that I was very attracted to men, but I still didn't know what that was because I still didn't understand what sex was for a very long time. But once I did, um, I had deep rooted hate against myself because of the Islamic teaching that I was taught from a very young age that these things are wrong. You're not allowed to be gay. Um, it is forbidden to love someone, but it's okay to hate others. So it was really interesting how that affected me very deeply. But um, when I went to college, there was a part of me that started accepting who I am once I started had having exposure for the outside world without a family influence or religious influence. And once I had that opportunity, I reached out to a very good therapist. And I've had more than 90 sessions with that therapist to to try to not fix, but work with a lot of the traumas that I had and explain or try to understand what that meant and go through from there. And that really helped me. Um, Helped me to understand the society that I was into because um I was having a huge cultural shock between the Saudi culture and the American culture. At the same time, I was trying to figure out my sexuality. From the same time, I was trying to figure out my faith. So there's a lot of big questions at that time being thrown around. And you kind of needed a therapist to trust to go through that. And that really helped me out. And that's when I started letting go of my old faith and beliefs and Islamic ideology and Sadic culture that I found to be harming. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I let go of everything. I just let go of what I found to be harming. And
Could you like elaborate more about like specific beliefs that you had that were harmful to you?
I was literally, I like what I said. I literally wanted to die just for being a member of the LGBT community. Uh, so just being gay wasn't accepted. Having sex wasn't accepted. Um, Enjoying the company of others wasn't accepted. Thinking outside the box wasn't allowed. So many things that were just limiting and increased your self hatred. Um, so yeah, it was very, very harmful. And from there, I left the faith, and from there, I have started to believe in myself and to learn how to love myself, and that was the hardest thing to do. Um, Till recently, I had a different understanding of what it means to love yourself. But yes, it took a lot of steps and it took a lot of hard work, and it was over a couple of years, if not 6, 7 years, that it took for me to work on myself. It's not easy.
Yeah, I really can't imagine that it is. And so during this whole time, I guess you were living in the US, like from the time you were 12 till like you were in university. Um, you didn't really live in Saudi society, or yeah, like kinds of
We were surrounded by Saudis all the time. We
okay.
we had the Saudi club. We were meeting on a weekly, regular basis. My some of my friends in school were from Saudi Arabia, so it wasn't that I wasn't direct with Saudi society. I was visiting back every other year or so, uh, and staying there for months. And there was a couple times that I stayed there for about 11 months and came back to the U.S. So it wasn't just strict isolation from the United States, but I'd say 50-50. It was half there, half here.
Um, so um, yeah, that
My relationship with the Saudis were uh as anyone like well, as if it was for my people of my home country, and it was a sense of home. I was When I became in college, I was the head of the cultural side of the Saudi club, and many times I represented the Saudi government on many occasions for the United for the university. I was a liaison between the Saudi cultural attaché and President Craig Schultz of Kansas State University several times. So yeah, I many occasions I was a representative for the Saudi people, and it meant a lot of to be a part of that community because it meant that I was still having a piece of home outside of home.
yeah, and
What kind of stuff were you doing as a cultural attaché?
Uh, I built a relationship between the university and the cultural attaché. They were able to. President Craig Schultz later on became a member of one of university boards in Saudi Arabia. Um, I was awarded a diplomatic award from the U.S. consulate in Jeddah because of my work in trying to close certain relations between the United States and Saudi Arabia in that role. So my work was a lot of times helping a lot with the misunderstandings, connecting the lines between the U.S. and Saudi cultures. Anytime there was a need for someone to inform or educate how to respect the Saudi people and the Saudi culture, I was always asked to come and do these information guides. That was part of my debrief for the Second Brigade at Fort Riley. So a lot of times I was the person to go to when it came to ensuring U.S. Saudi relations, especially at not a huge scale, a small scale, not not. Oh, I don't like to overplay my role. I was just a student who was trying to do his part in bringing two cultures together, and that meant the world to me at that time.
Yeah, and like Saudi culture and like Arab culture, like in a very abstract sense, is one thing. But working so closely with the Saudi state, um, and at the same time, like going through this, like this journey of like acceptance, I feel like there must have been some sort of cognitive dissonance there, right?
Absolutely. I think that was part of the problem that I was trying to explain earlier. That came from the self-hate. Let's not forget that we were educated these things in Saudi Arabia. These things were Saudi Islamic teachings from the
Yeah,
Wahhabist ideologies. So let's not act innocent here, right?
yeah, yeah.
Uh, and yes, uh, I was here. I don't know if you know about this, but there was a conference that was made by Saudis who were students in the United States. It's called Abad Dimensions. I don't know if you know about it.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I was part of that. It happened twice. One, we did it, and the second time the Saudi Cultural Mission sponsored us.
Oh yeah.
Yes. I even have a couple of awards from the Saudi Culture Mission. And the funny thing about that is that a year or a few months later, they essentially issued my death sentence when I came out as the first openly gay man from Saudi Arabia back in 2018. Sorry, 2016.
So sorry, was
But
it like a cultural committee, or are you talking about like a Saudi court?
what I was told, it was someone called me. He didn't give me any official papers. You know how that is.
Yeah.
Uh, he claimed it to be someone from the Saudi government. Didn't prove it, but he just claimed it. And he told me that I have two death sentences. I thought that was interesting because usually you get one death sentence. But so I asked, why do I have two death sentences? And he says, oh, because once you left Islam and the second one you're openly gay. And so I said, so are you gonna stone me and then cut my head off? And he just laughed and hung up on me. Uh, so
But let's
so
let's wind back a bit on like you got this call at one point, and like we were at this point where talking about your work with the Saudi government and the cognitive dissonance involved, and at a certain point you decided to come out publicly, like all at once. Um, like
And
was it
my
like
work
that?
with the Saudi government wasn't like it wasn't a job, right?
Yeah,
It was something I was passionate about. I was
yeah,
passionate about building U.S. Saudi relations. I was passionate about bridging cultures together. I was passionate about um, emerging these cultures together so there could be better global peace, a better human rights, better understanding of the
yeah,
difference of our world. That's why I engaged in all of this. It
yeah,
wasn't it wasn't like I was sponsored by someone.
yeah. But could you like talk about the your experiences, like starting to express those things about like being gay, criticizing Islam, how like the first steps of that, and what kind of pushback from the Saudi community or the Saudi government before it was a full on death sentence, because everybody knows at that point. Like,
Yeah, I think I had a backlash, but and it was a lot of death threats. I did get a lot of death threats. I did get a lot of shaming. I did get a lot of uh um humiliation from a lot of people disowning. But I think what helped me
so you
go
came
through
out
all of that.
publicly, you were like disowned by your
Give me a
family.
second. Because because I had a strategy, which was I was connected to a safe house. I was connected to a lawyer. I had a group of people that were working on my case, right? I was able to go into a safe house. I was able to shut down my social media accounts for some time. And it was not about me publicizing myself. It was that period of time was about me figuring out who I am and being safe. That same year, when I was in a safe house in Kansas City, there was another Saudi guy who came out, but he wasn't in a safe house. He was kidnapped and we don't know anything about him.
But yeah.
So the reality is
That was in the US?
that was in Kansas City, Missouri. Yes. And the only reason I know that is because I was fundraising right outside Constantino's and Brookside one time for the ACLU. And a lawyer who I was convincing to donate for the ACLU that I got to know is like, oh, yeah, so you're Saudi and you're gay. Well, I have this client. She was telling me about her client who was gay and was student at UMKC. And his family found out, and the Saudi government found out, but he was in a safe house. They found a way to take him back in a private jet. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
Private diplomatic jet. No one looks into it. So that's the reality that's very scary for a lot of people. So when the beginning, the only way that I was able to survive all of this was one, I was in a safe house. To the strategy was take down your social media, the old social media that you have, and start the new social media.
So
Pick your own.
by the way,
Hold on.
yeah,
Yes.
sorry. I was like, by the way, do we like, is it public knowledge what this person's name was? Is there any advocacy for
No,
finding
I
out
don't even
what's
know
happened
his
to?
name. I don't even know his name. I'm all I know is that it happened to him. And the only reason I know about it is because I ran to that lawyer. That's the only reason I know about it.
Yeah. Sorry for the interruption. Do go on, please.
So I took down my social media and started new social media. I got into a safe house and I started to build my own chosen family. And then, most importantly, started to figure out who I am. That time period is as necessary to figure out who you are as it is for you to be safe. It's not important for you to be public. It's not important for you to be. It's important for you to be public in the United States in English between Americans, but it's not important for you to be public between Arabs in Arabic media.
Yeah, it's about discovering yourself, right? And having
Because
yeah.
there is the reason for that. The Arab world will always know about you some way or another. But if you're in the Western world and they don't know about you and something happens to you, no one knows shit. There's a philosophy that says if there's a dead cat in the jungle and no one knows about the dead cat in the jungle, is there a dead cat in the jungle? A very big philosophical question. So if the people you're around don't know about you, if the people you live between have no idea who you are, or you might be in danger from the Saudi government, and something happens to you, no one will know or notice.
Yeah.
The most recent example is the two sisters that were killed in Australia just last month
Wow.
in their own apartment while they were sleeping.
Yeah.
The only reason they found out they were dead is because they were so back in paying their rent, they called the police to enter the house and then they found them dead. No one was there to ask about them.
Yeah.
And
They don't,
how do we know it was the Saudi government that ordered it?
we don't know for sure if the Saudi government ordered it, but that is the government that is kidnapping all of us. That is the government that's arresting us, anyways. That's the government that we're getting death threats from. So yeah, the Saudi government is well known for kidnapping Saudis from all across the world and eliminating them. It's nothing new, um, and it's always been very scary. But that's the reality that we live in
Yeah.
at the moment.
Yeah. Like anyone with any experience within the scene or like uh yeah, like really has any experience there or no one knows people. Knows yeah, it does happen quite frequently. One of the most like yeah, like the most heartbreaking cases that I've come across was this woman, Dina Ali. I believe that was like 2014 or something. I was still in Saudi Arabia at that point. And yeah, she was a feminist. She posted like things about women's rights on Twitter, and she wanted to live freely, marry whoever she wants to, and yeah, be employed how she'd like, and expressed her views online without fearing retribution. And while she was in a transit in the Philippines, yeah, some like her family contacted Saudi officials, and she was forced into an airplane and back to Saudi Arabia, and nobody has heard anything about her since. And what like what also like really broke my heart at that point was like I was actually like writing emails to like American news organizations and like people within like the public spotlight, and like just why is nobody talking about this? And like nobody would like. I don't think I even got any responses from anyone at that point. And like to be fair, my networking skills, and I wasn't an activist or anything, but j just the world turning a blind eye to all of this is quite egregious. And
Also, let's be
the one
honest.
time, the one time, like when it happens to a high-profile journalist and a U.S. resident, Jamal Khashoggi, the whole world is up in arms. Even though people like people involved in this scene, we know this wasn't the first example of this. This was this is part of a continuous pattern.
That's just true. But if you think about it, for the longest time, the people that have been talking about human rights advocacy for Saudis have been religious extremists until recently. For a very long time, you've had dissidents and uh,
Well, yeah, I mean,
foreign countries in the diaspora, right, that have extreme religious views, and they have been the dominant voice
yeah,
for the last, what, 40, 30 years?
yeah. I mean, the fact is that
It's,
yeah,
it's, it, what I'm trying to say, it takes more responsibility on work for those who has just started, right? To make sure that the media knows that there are other people with legitimate views and that are credible, that are not exaggerating what's happening and not biased for one view or the other, and are willing to show the true picture. That's why a lot of journalists have been a lot of time hesitant about covering Saudi stuff, is because a lot of times they don't find people who are willing to be journalistic or honest about the true reality that we're facing in Saudi Arabia. And that's why I decided to become a journalist. That's why Jamal Khashoggi was very, very important. It's because we need people that are not going to have conflict of interest when it comes to covering these stories. They're
yeah,
not
that's
they're not looking for a seat on the table for power, right? By the end of the day. That's what I call conflict of interest. A lot of times you see people that are calling themselves Saudi activists, human rights activists, and organizers, but by the end of the day, what they're aiming for is a power position, is a representation of power. When they get the chance, they could be in power in Saudi Arabia. I call that the conflict of interest.
yeah. I get what you
Either
mean.
you either come and defend human rights, regardless of what it is, or you become honest from the beginning and say, I am doing this for political powers.
No, I mean, I think I might have to disagree a little bit there because people who like there's always going to be someone who needs to be in power, and there's always going to be a certain degree of cynicism of yeah, I want the power, but at the same time we want the people in power to be people who care about human rights,
Fine.
not
That's
if
fine.
even if not from a conscious
That's
like
absolutely fine. If you're looking for a seat of power, look for that seat of power in the country that you live in, but do not make a conflict of interest. Let me give you an example. You have people living in the diaspora getting their citizenship in that diaspora, yet they have zero political experience. They have zero legislative experience. They have zero executive experience, and they have zero judicial experience. Okay, you want to have some experience. You want to apply your own philosophy, yet you have none of those. You live in a country where you could exercise them, but you choose not to. Yet, yet, you have every being of your body wanting to choose to become in power in the country that you came from. And in the same time, you say there's human rights violations. Which is your priority? Your seat of power or human rights violations? To me, to me, it's very obvious what human greed looks like.
No, no, like I can definitely see that in the scene to some degree as well. Like, and I think in every activist scene there is this aspect of like this very cynical aspect of people who are who are just out for power. I'm not not going into any details like within the scenes that I'm involved in because burning bridges and kind of thing, but uh yeah, I mean the other like another aspect of it that you talked about is that the best organized people for the last like 30 years have been like religious demagogues. And I think this is due to the fact that in Saudi Arabia, the only people who are organized or allowed to be organized to any degree are the religious establishment. And so any sort of diaspora activism is kind of going to be a reflection of what's present on the inside. And it's also interesting that you mentioned like 30 years because that's when like about 30 years ago is when the Soviet Union fell, and thereby like the Saudi like communist movement, which was like next to religious movements, the like kind of the only organized opposition anywhere, um lost all sorts of legitimacy and yeah. But I think in recent years we have made some progress. Like at first it's very scary to be like to say like I'm the first you know like the first activist for this or that or the first openly gay Saudi man or whatever. Like that puts a huge target on your back, right? The more people do it though, the um the more normalized it gets, and like the more people are going to be willing to join those movements. And yeah, I think in recent years there have been enough individuals that came up to kind of start organizations, start groups, maybe not specifically, yeah, like as politically involved within the Saudi scene, but definitely like helping people like escape Saudi Arabia, helping like oppressed minorities over there. And I think this movement is moving in a positive direction. Do you
Yeah,
think?
and speaking of the Soviet Union, after the fall, uh, the Russian activist scene also ran into the opposite problem that Wajeeh mentioned, where they had all these people who wanted to change the political system, and no one who actually wanted to hold power. So they didn't mention anything done. And well, look where Russia is now. There's a definite balance to be maintained here.
Yep. Yeah, but that is definitely a very delicate topic.
But yeah, what we're having at the moment is the exact opposite in the Saudi opposition. Is everyone wants to take the seat of power. No one wants to just advocate for human rights.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess there's also this frustration with a lot of us that the movement in general is not, or the part of the movement that we support, like more liberally minded, yeah, like aspects of the Saudi opposition, do not get the light of day they deserve, and so one strives for personal prominence, in that sense, and yeah, it's really difficult, in my opinion, to gauge whether someone is really out for political power in Saudi Arabia in the future, because the situation over there is very unpredictable. We don't know what it's going to look like in 10, 20, 30 years. All we can do is
Yes, but
advocate for
their
what we
honest
believe in.
rhetoric is enough, right?
Yeah.
Their honest rhetoric is enough. When they say, I want to go back and have a seat in power, you should take them for their word.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, we're not saying they're wanting a seat of power without saying it. No. What I'm saying is that they have came out and publicly admitted that they want a seat in power. That's totally different than me assuming that they want a seat in power, right?
You're right about that. Yeah. There are certain aspects of the movement that are definitely like that, and the most prominent parts of the movement, I would even say. So you certainly have a point there. Yeah.
So I'm not making an assumption about something. I'm just quoting what they have said. And that's why when I say we don't need to exaggerate what things have been said, and we need to look at these things from a journalistic perspective, is very important. Because what you need to do is ask the same question as if you're from somewhere else. Ask the same question to someone from a different country. See if you could balance that to a different scale.
Yeah, I mean, is it only about exposing the issues and like talking about it, or like to bring change you need power? That's one thing, and like if there are elements of this movement that we find less than um palatable, then isn't competition part of the solution? Competition for that kind of power? Maybe not necessarily like
Yes,
okay,
but we don't have competition. At the moment, there is no competition. At the moment, if you want to become part of the competition, you should at least practice.
Yeah.
You have you heard of conditioning? That's part of every school in the United States. That's part of every sport team in the United States. Every summer, you have to go part of conditioning. You don't go to summer. You don't go to summer and just have vacation. No, you have conditioning and you work out every day of the summer, practicing for that tennis team, practicing for that soccer team, practicing for that football team, practicing for that baseball team. They're practicing all the time. Meanwhile, we don't have anyone practicing. We just have people claiming they won positions without any actual experience.
Yeah.
They barely have any lobbying experience. Barely.
Yeah. You're right. Like in general trends, I absolutely agree with you, and you have a very fair point there that getting involved within the scenes in the countries that we're in, since we're in diaspora, is the only way to build up those abilities, right?
How are we going to understand the ethic, ethics, the etiquettes, the written rules and unwritten rules of democracies when we haven't actually practiced it? Give me one Saudi that have collected signatures to put something on the ballot other than me.
Well,
to change the constitution. Give me one Saudi that have ran for office. I know one woman more than 20 years ago, and she's became you know, and I never heard of her again.
Yeah, I mean,
And she's not even part of the opposition.
it is quite sad. And also it is like the thing is, I also do know people who are potentially interested in that kind of thing, and the fact that, like, first of all, many of us are refugees that might be starting out and kind of like building up our financial situation and all of that. On the other hand, like another important aspect of it is that, like, even if it is like financially and career-wise doable, not being a citizen of the country that you're in makes your political engagement like you have a much less room for political engagement. Um, and like those are challenges that I think, like, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. Of course, we should try, and you're right about yeah, everything you're saying about that there.
Listen,
But
grassroots organizers don't care where you're from. Political grassroots organizers, they don't care about your identity. They don't care about what your religious background are. They care about what your intentions are and what you're trying to accomplish.
yeah, but that doesn't apply to running for a public office. And I do get your point. Don't get me wrong. I'm
But
just, yeah.
like working for someone that's getting to run for a public office is as important for running for office, right?
I suppose so.
I
Yeah.
I am. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I haven't said earlier.
Please go on.
I sit on the Kansas City Health Commission Housing Committee. That's a position I was appointed by a local person that was elected by an office. I would have not gotten a political appointed position if I wasn't politically involved. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I cannot run for office, but yet I have a political position.
Yeah.
Why? Because I helped someone on his campaign. Do I
Yeah.
need to run for office my name? No. But why don't you get involved? I sit on board of directors. I used to sit on the board of directors for the Kansas City Anti-Violence Project. I currently sit on the Missouri board of directors for Missourians for Alternative to the Death Penalty. Does any of this has to do with Saudi Arabia? No. But the experience, the people I help, the people I get to know, the knowledge I gain cannot be replaced with any amount of money.
Yeah, it's all going to be very important for the movement, I have no doubt. So like, okay, we've been talking a lot about, what the movement is missing and what we can work to improve and all of that. But could we get to the other side of it, like things um that are being done that we would like to see more of? Like I know like you've been working with, like, correct me if I'm wrong, members of the LGBT community in Saudi Arabia on the ground who are like having, like, experiencing difficulties and like kind of have a perspective on that. And you've also been advocating for people like Suhail Al Yahya, who like I'm gonna let you
Yeah.
tell us about those people
So
and the activism that's
we
been
have
done.
been doing a lot of work. We have been doing a lot of work, and we started uh, two petitions with All Out. All Out is an organization that focuses on LGBT human rights petitions, and we did a petition for Saad Yusuf Al Yahya. He was first arrested 2018 because of parental disobedience. Memorized the Quran and got out early. Went to California State University, Fullerton, where he was a student there. He was living his life, posting pictures. One of the pictures were literally a little feminine. He was in front of the beach with shorts. He didn't post that picture in Saudi Arabia. He posted that picture in the United States. His family and the Saudi government were very upset about that, and they lured him, telling him that his mother is dying and he needs to return home. Once he returned home in 2019 of October, he was arrested and detained on parental disobedience for appearing like woman, public taste, and cyber information. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison and 800 lashes. So all of that is because he appears to be gay, and he's gay, and that our country is discriminating against him for that. Um, he's set to be released of October of this year. We still haven't heard anything from the government. That's why we started the petition. I started another petition as well, to demand a protective way, a legalized way for trans men and women in Saudi Arabia to be able to transition without being medically harmed by the doctors or by the society or by anyone else for their transition. Two petitions that I started with all out. Feel free to go out and support us on these petitions. Share them with your friends. Let other people know.
Yeah, I'll definitely
Yeah,
link those petitions in the notes for the show.
absolutely. The other thing that we're working on is media representation, and that's one of my biggest focuses at the moment. Is that to be able to give great representation for the LGBT community whenever there is an LGBT topic on hand, whether it's in Arabic or in English. So Buzz Lightyear being banned in Arabic movie theaters, Doctor Strange being banned in movie theaters in Saudi Arabia and UAE just because of a millisecond of a gay scene in the whole movie. Um, we talked about these, debated about these in Al Hurra TV with Shafis, spoke with that in Arabic with different channels as well, in English, and tried to explain to the world what's happening. Um, these representations are important, explaining to the Western world what's happening from uh, a perspective that they could understand and uh, explain how these things are playing a role in the country is very important, especially at a time where hashtag Fitra was spreading massively. Now, recently, their page on Instagram and Twitter have been
Could
on
you elaborate on
Facebook.
what hashtag Fitra is and what this word
Yeah,
means? And
Fitra is a hashtag that has been spreading movement demanding natural relations, in quotes, that are saying that the only natural relations is between a man and a woman. There is no third gender. There is no, like, there's nothing natural about gay or lesbian relationships. So that kind of idea that they're trying to spread, um, they they almost look that their flag almost looks like the transgender flag, but only with two colors, pink and blue. Uh, so I thought that was very funny.
yeah, like
Uh,
only two genders once. Yeah.
uh, their Facebook page have been taken down. Their Instagram page has been taken down. The only thing left is their Twitter
Way
page
too
and
late.
their website. Kind of way too late. Yeah, way too late. But the important thing is that we can discuss these things and we use that in our advantage.
Yeah, and
It's how we use this opportunity to be able to be like, oh, okay, this is the time to educate people. Perfect timing. This is what I just needed.
Yeah.
Instead of being, oh darn it, there's another hashtag. It's an amazing opportunity to take this and twist it around and use it in your own benefit. I think it's as much as it has been increasing hate attacks and all of that on the LGBT community, it has been also helping a lot of people know that they're not alone.
You mean the hashtag?
You know, us being involved in the hashtag has been
Oh yeah,
the LGBT
like
community.
yeah, kind of hijacking it too.
Yeah.
This is also part of the human experience and human nature, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and there is something very, very frustrating about how those things work, where when you have Arabic pages, that's that are operating from societies in which gay people can be imprisoned and all of that, and you know, talking about protecting society from the gays, and they're allowed to stay on for like months on end before they're banned. Like they're held to a much lower standard than say, like English speaking Twitter, where
Oh, way.
yeah, like where you misgender
I've
someone and you
I've
run
I've told I've
mistake.
told this to
Yeah,
Twitter. I've told this to Twitter research and we Twitter
yeah,
executives before. No, I'm going to say it again. Twitter Arabic has a lot of people that work for them that are homophobes. They need to review people that are working for them
yeah,
and ensure that their quality management is the same in Arabic and in English because we're being treated totally different.
yeah, absolutely.
2 years ago, I saw some changes, but after Elon announced that he wants to buy Twitter, I've seen a lot of people been let go of Twitter, like let go that are working for Twitter that have been responsible for a lot of the changes. Not because of their work they were let go, but because they were trying to please Elon Musk to make sure that he could buy the platform. It has nothing to do with the LGBT human rights work, but it has everything to do with that deal. So since that deal, a lot of the quality of uh, the Twitter management, especially in Arabic, has fell dramatically.
Yeah. And I think it's also worth mentioning. You said they should be held to the same standard. I think there's a much greater responsibility actually um uh, to to prevent this kind of hate speech coming out from societies in which the community is criminalized, and people can be killed and imprisoned for being gay, for example. Like if if somebody in America tweets out that homosexuality is unnatural or an abomination or whatever, something like that, the like the consequences that could plausibly come out of that are much less severe than the consequences that could come out of it in like within a context where like the police can arrest someone for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that needs to be paid much more attention to for that reason, I
Exactly.
think. Yeah. Yeah, and it's also worth mentioning now, regarding Suhail and the LGBT community in general, that at the Saudi Diaspora Association, we did start this vigil in different cities, like namely in London, Dublin, and Berlin, to send in solidarity with the community, with Suhail, um, demand his release and the decriminalization of the community. Um, so last year it was on the 26th of June in front of the embassies. This year it is the 23rd of July. It's on our Facebook
So it's
pages.
coming up.
Yep, yep,
Put it on your calendar date. Make sure you go.
yep. At this point, I mean, it's probably going to be in the past by the time this episode is released. But do check it out, and yeah, check out the following actions that we might take part in regarding this. Yeah. So I
You
thought,
could also
yeah.
find our work online. We're always posting our work, whether it's the Diaspora Association or myself or members of the LGBT community. We're more than happy to tell you about what we're doing. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as our social
Absolutely.
media accounts, because
So
that's how you're going to be able to know what we're up to and our new projects, whether it's about updates regarding the vigil, like Zach was mentioning,
yeah,
or whether it's petitions that we need your help to spread the word.
yeah, absolutely. So for us, it's like, yeah, we have this Facebook page. It's called the Diaspora Association. It's also on Twitter. Our handle is Party Diaspora SA. And yeah, I mean, we're like kind of running out of time, and I think we covered like pretty much everything we wanted to cover. Is there anything you wanted to add to this, Wajeeh?
No, you can find me at Wajeeh Lion, WAJEEH LION, Twitter, double N at the end. But other than that, if you would like to have a conversation, if you would like to work on a project or anything that has to do with human rights, please feel free to reach out and talk to me. I'm more than happy to work with anyone that needs a hand for human rights. Let's make a difference together. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah,
That is amazing. And you, by the way, oh sorry. So you mentioned a YouTube channel. Could you tell us? You have a YouTube channel. What's it called?
Wajeeh Lion.
Wajeeh Lion. Okay. Wonderful. We're gonna link that in the notes, of course, as well. Yeah. Ben, do go on if you have any last
yeah,
thoughts.
yeah, and I'm guessing you'd be interested in sharing ideas and resources with people working on similar issues in other parts of the world.
Yes.
Russia comes to mind right now, among other
Yeah.
countries.
Yeah. Especially with the Ukraine-Russian war. People from Chechnya, more than happy to work from anyone across the world, especially when it comes to uh, ending uh, injustice, systematic injustice, whether it's in the United States or in the Middle East or Europe or Asia. It is time that we say no and we demand an end to this injustice.
All right. This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you again very much for this wonderful opportunity for talking to us. And yeah, until next time. Bye.
Bye.